Welcome to DeFi by Design, where we talk all things blockchain and cryptocurrency while striving to educate, empower, and enrich.
What's going on, guys? Real quick break for the DeFi by Design podcast sponsors and the DeFi Slate sponsors who make this all possible. First, we have 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵, a money market protocol that allows you to borrow and lend and leverage your assets to earn interest, right? So if you want to deposit some stable coins in there, currently you can get 3, 4, 5, 6, 8% APYs on stable coins, which oust any bank in the world. As far as we're concerned, you can deposit any Ethereum-based asset that is listed there, borrow against it. You can borrow stablecoins. You can borrow other assets like ETH or 𝗹𝗶, Link, even the 𝗵𝗶 token itself. 𝗵𝗶 is the go-to protocol for any sort of borrowing and lending. Check it out at app.𝗵𝗶.com. The next one we have is 𝗃𝘳𝑐𝑠. 𝗃𝘳𝑐𝑠 is a new crypto wallet, 𝗃𝘳𝑐𝑠.com. You can store all of your crypto there. They have quite a few options. They're integrating new DEX features soon and allow you to have a non-custodial way to store your crypto safely off of centralized exchanges and also just not in a MetaMask or in your own ledger. A bit of extra security there. Next, we have 𝗵𝗵𝗃. 𝗵𝗵𝗃 is a decentralized perpetual swap protocol, basically allowing you to trade on leverage on the Ethereum chain, right? They're coming out with V3 very soon. By the time you're listening to this, it might already be out. They are a super solid team, and they're pumping updates and allowing you to trade decentralized perpetual swaps on ETH, Link, and a few others, all on Ethereum, all decentralized. So that is 𝗵𝗵𝗃. Next, we have 𝗵𝗵𝗃. 𝗵𝗵𝗃 is a decentralized stablecoin. It's an algorithmic stablecoin that is pegged to the purchasing power of commodities. And basically, it measures what value $1 buys in terms of a commodity index each week. And then it provides you with essentially a store of value that allows you to continuously evade inflation while maintaining, a stable aspect as if it was $1. And that is the 𝗵𝗵𝗃 protocol. Check them out on Twitter. Finally, we have DeFi. It is an L2 decentralized exchange. They allow you to basically trade in a gasless and feeless manner, big volumes, whatever quantities you need. It's almost like a centralized exchange on Ethereum, but you are the custodian. They do not hold your coins as a centralized exchange would. You have full control, full power. So really, it's almost like a centralized exchange capabilities on a decentralized exchange, and that is DeFi. All those sponsors make this possible. I know it's a lot to take in, but thank you very much for listening, and let's get back to it.
What's up, guys? Episode 24 of the DeFi by Design podcast here today. We almost a quarter away to 100, baby. We are making progress. It's been a good 6-8 months with Robbie and the guys here. And we've been learning a lot. Today we are bringing you another episode that's going to be strongly focused on the lending and borrowing markets and the interest rates and kind of how the building blocks of DeFi are coming together to offer people a favorable rate in the times of low yield in the world. Really interesting stuff going on a macro scale as well. We've got Joe Biden has came into office today for the United States. Really interesting. I saw a tweet that said Donald Trump left him a double-decker on the estate toilet. That's always a good one. And other than that, we've got some interesting stuff going on in the stock market. Crypto markets are doing well. And we're here today. So I'm with Robbie as usual. Robbie, what's going on?
Good morning, Andy. What is up? What is up? It's another beautiful sunny day. I mean, the weather's just, I couldn't ask for better. So I'm hyped. I'm excited. I'm happy. Feeling good. And these are some of my favorite episodes. We have Smart Credit on today, Martin from Smart Credit, and we're gonna talk a lot more about what Smart Credit does. But to introduce the concept, it's a bridge between centralized finance and decentralized finance, and we talk a lot about decentralization and these different protocols and applications. But really, part of what is driving this mass adoption is building bridges between the two sectors of finance, decentralized and centralized. So, we're not here to burn bridges and start revolutions. We're here to build bridges and help, make this world a better place. So, I'm excited to hear about how Smart Credit does that. Martin, how you doing today, man?
Hey, guys. Very happy to be here doing good. So, great stuff. So, looking forward to the conversation.
Nice. Real quick, how do you feel about the decentralized versus the centralized bridge that Robbie just brought it up and now it just got me thinking, would you say you're more in the revolutionary camp of burn all traditional things and replace? Or do you find yourself to be kind of more in the let's work together and kind of collaborate, and if we both have to give up certain things on each end, then so be it? Like, which camp do you find yourself in, Martin?
Okay, I will define a third camp, and I will say this camp is give people a choice. It's about people having a choice, because at the moment people don't have a choice. They are stuck in a traditional fiat financial world. That's everything they have, and most of people, okay, only the ones who are working in the banks, maybe they have to know how the fiat world actually is working. Now, most of people don't know it. Now, decentral world, when we're creating a decentral world, actually we're offering the people a choice. They can have a choice. Do they want to be in a part of this manipulated fiat financial system, or do they want to be part of a DeFi, of decentral system? So it's, and what I think what will happen is like just this, let's call it the traditional finance. It starts to go slowly down, the decentral finance is going up. And this is something similar because it happens in traditional banks. Look, traditional banks, when they introduced online banking, only the youngest people, they started to use the online banking. The elderly generations, they didn't use it. I worked for Credit Suisse, like a Credit Suisse private banking, 10 years. Now, the average age of a Credit Suisse client is 55 years. Average age, 55 years. No. And these 55 years old people, they probably don't start to use DeFi. They start to keep using, speaking with the relationship managers and do the online banking. But the younger generations, they will take over. So it will be coexistence, but it's as well like giving a choice to the people. The people can choose in which assets, in which underlying assets they want to keep the wealth. Do they want to keep it in manipulated assets? Do they want to keep it in less manipulatable assets? It's all about the choice. It's about monetary competition, because at the moment we don't have monetary competition. This is like a Soviet Union 2.0, where everything is written to the people what they have to do. People think that they live in a democracy in a free world. No, it's not. If the monetary system is defined, if there is no choice, it's not a real democracy, it's not a real capitalism. It is a little bit like a Soviet Union 2.0.
Yeah, it's I mean, the choice is super important. I mean, that was one of the big topics that we spoke about with a dude whose name's Joseph Weinberg. Yeah, he was in Bitcoin quite early into the mining scene. He's kind of got his hands in trying to basically bring DeFi to traditional world and whatnot. And I mean, we speak about these manipulated concepts of markets. I mean, they exist in both, but ultimately that choice is important. And yeah, you're kind of right. I never really thought about the monetary competition. I mean, that's something that has never existed really. I mean, we've always had a certain standard. I mean, obviously each nation has, in an economic sense, their own currency. So those currencies compete and trade against each other on the Forex markets. But the idea of basically a race to create the soundest money that can facilitate worldwide, and I don't want to sound like a speakeasy, but abundance, it's been an insane challenge. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're seeing here. Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, Andy, I think you bring up a good point about the fiat currencies, not having any source of monetary competition aside from the political side of things, where, it's essentially a tool for some countries to gain power over others. America happens to be winning that competition at the moment because it's a reserve currency. It's really at the base of all the other nations' currencies. That could have been said for...
Hey, Rob, real quick, I want to keep you on that point. So going off that, and you too, Martin, is the solution, or what we could prescribe to be a solution, is it one global currency? Like, is that Bitcoin? Is that like what we're thinking?
Well, here, I'll go ahead and finish that thought. Now there's some people around the world that don't really have a horse in the political race. There's an internet economy booming. There's people moving and don't really stay in one place at one time, which is why Bitcoin has gotten so much attention as the currency of the internet. So in terms of a solution, I'd really like to hear what Martin thinks on this. Is it one global reserve currency, or is it, different currencies that kind of are used for different things?
Okay. Let us trace a little bit back, because what we are saying, history is always repeating. It's always repeating. Now, we are now 100 years in a very strict, like a central banking era. Let's look how the finance worked before central banking. Okay, we know there was a free banking era. There's something similar existed in Europe. Now, and there was a gold standard. Now, what is very important in a gold standard, and all the central bankers today, by their profession, they complain always about gold standard because they're getting paid to say gold standard is bad. No, I'm saying gold standard was perfect. It was perfect for the people. It was perfect for the middle class. That's where the middle class was created. Gold standard was voluntary. Every nation chose to join or not to choose. Every nation could abandon gold standard. And the gold was the reserve currency between the states. Now, of course, now they are starting to go, people start to say it's not effective to transport gold from, let's say, from Berlin to New York. But that's not the case. The states gave the gold in the vaults, and the vaults were in New York, and this was just moving gold from one vault to another. And the gold standard, the big advantage it was, if the government started to spend too much, okay, name a government which is spending too little at the moment. We don't know it. So all governments are taking debts. But if you're taking debts, your interest is automatically going up, your economy is cooling down. So, because you have to finance it, you cannot create a new reserve currency. And the reserve currency between the state, it was a gold. Now, if some country happened to live too excessive life, then what it means, they had to finance it. They had to finance it with the gold. The gold was flowing away, so from the countries. So it's not like the system now where we have unlimited reserve currency creation. So this was the gold standard, and this gold standard, we know it got destroyed. It got destroyed after the first war, 1933. Then it got stopped in the second war, and then 1944 it was then completely over, and then the remnants of this were 1971. And then the last country in the world who still kept some elements of a gold standard, it was Switzerland, and they left 1992 when they became a member of the United Nations, which was a very big mistake in my eyes. So
Martin,
please.
can we talk a little bit about why some of these countries left the gold standard? Something in my eyes now is it has to do something with oil in the Middle East and America trying to get as much of it as possible, at the root. And I'm sure Switzerland and some of these other countries left the gold standard for other reasons. Maybe for similar, they were trying to accumulate commodities. Could you explain that a little bit more from your perspective?
Okay, not necessarily. The key, okay, let's look at the events that happened. Till 1913, it was a gold standard with like 51 states. I think 80% of our global economy was based on a gold standard till 1913. We know Federal Reserve was created, and Federal Reserve got all the rights now, but the central banks were created as well in other regions. They got as well many rights to create the money and so on. It's about the central banks didn't like the gold standard. So this is one thing. Now, 1933, then the gold got abolished in US. Just that everyone knows it. The land of democracy, owning gold meant you go for 2 years to the jail if you don't report it or give it away. So the land of democracy. Gold means jail until 1971. So why? Because in the First War, there was so huge and debt was created and debt was finished. Why did the First War lasted so long? It was because of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve kept buying US debt, US government debt. US government debt was used to build new weapons. These new weapons were sent to the front. If the monetary system during the First War would have been gold standard, the war would have lasted maybe 1 year. Both sides would have exhausted. They would have a little peace, and everything would have continued. This new monetary system, this Federal Reserve system, allowed this extraordinary debt already at that time in the US. And the war can continue for 4 years instead of to have stopped within 1 year before. And then 1933, of course, then the result was the gold flows. And the gold was, the US Treasury couldn't keep the gold anymore on this price as it was officially. I think it was $1.25, like 1 ounce, $25. Because dollar was a measure of, it was unit. It was dollar meant it was a weight. So the dollar was not monetary unit. It was a measure of unit for the gold. And because so excessive debt creation was happened, with what is the new central banking policy allowed is a massive government debt creation already at that time. Now we are even factors, more of this. The gold standard wasn't sustainable. Because gold standard means every person can identify there is inflation. Gold standard is an enemy, and the Bitcoin and gold standard, they are enemy of a central banking. Because you see there is an inflation. Let me say about inflation now. You look at the statistics, you think inflation is small now in Europe or in Switzerland. So no, it's not. The inflation statistics have been changed. The real inflation is the monetary inflation. You take this so-called M3, that's monetary aggregate, the third aggregate, and you look how much is this growing. And I think in US it was growing in the last 12 months, 35%. Now inflation will hit with a delay, 12 months, 18 months, it will hit. So it's coming. So it's inflation is a ratio of total money divided with the goods in the society. If total money is growing, the price is going up. It's just mathematics. You cannot change it. Now, the inflation how it's calculated, it was changed. It was changed in the Clinton era in US, and after that it was used in all Europe, the same approach. Because they said, pension funds, they are indexed by the inflation. Let's be creative, let's get inflation down. And if inflation is down, we have to pay less pensions. Wow, we are good, we are very creative. That's what they did. And the same system got moved over to the Europe as well. Of course, the European governments like this new, like a Clinton modified inflation calculation very much too. And this is a website, shadowstats.com. If you go there, you see pre-Clinton calculation of the inflation in US, and you see a current calculation. The cap is like 6, 7, 8%. So, but this is every year, and this is what the current monetary policy is taking. De facto, the money is taken away from central class, from middle class, who even doesn't know that money is taken away from them. They even don't know it because they believe the inflation numbers.
Right. And I mean, speaking on to what's happening now, I mean, yeah, this year has seen definitely an unprecedented amount of creation of just endless money is what it seemed. I know a lot of people who are working online, who are investing in stocks or crypto. A lot of people are having extremely good years in terms of like how much money that they're making. But what I've been trying to think for myself and explaining to others, and what I've been thinking is like, you have to think about, if you're doing this well, then how many other people who are much smarter than you and have more money are doing even better, right? So then at what point is your, $100,000 a year or $100,000 a month or even $10,000 a year is like, how much is that really in terms of purchasing power, right? So we're getting to a really interesting point here where it's like, okay, a lot of people who are invested in risk assets are making a lot of money, and obviously there's people who aren't, and so as you said, like that gap is kind of widening more. Now, I'd like to kind of shift away from like the social and the monetary theory kind of concept and kind of talk more real on how this is happening right now. And the one thing that I would like to start with is how have we seen the interest rates and the yields in the world that are offered through either treasury bonds in the U.S. or mortgages, right? Loans from banks, right? So how have we seen those things change over the last 6 to 12 months? Obviously, interest rates have gone to zero, but what does that really mean for those who are listening, Martin? What does it mean when interest rates have gone to zero? What does that do to yields, to mortgages, to loans from the banks for small businesses, etc.?
Yes, and this is as well, but people look now, the interest rate is going to the zero. But now the big question is interest rate going to the zero as well for small, medium enterprises? Answer is no, not at all. It's growing. And now let's think, what is the economy? What is the GDP? 80% of GDP is created by the SMEs indirectly. 20% is created by the corporations. Corporations are destroying workplaces. SMEs are creating workplaces. So corporations are optimizing and they get a very low interest rates. The SMEs are getting very high interest rate. This is getting at all. Because one thing is, of course, if you look on the Fed interest rate, yes, okay, mortgages, other things, they're indexed on this, but let's think real economy, the SMEs. Now, why is the SME interest rate so high?
Real quick, for those who are listening, what is an SME, Martin?
Small, medium enterprises, 80% of economy. So 80% of employers, okay, they are the SMEs. So, okay. Now, small, medium enterprises, like shops here, shops there, local shops, non-corporations. Now, because there are regulations, Basel III regulations. Now, and the Basel III regulations are saying if every company you're doing lending needs a credit rating. No, corporations have credit ratings. There are credit rating agencies that give them credit ratings. And if your company has a credit rating like corporations have them, then you have to put, 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗵𝗀𝗃 Stellung loss provisions. It's the so-called RWA, risk-weighted assets capital budget. You have to use a very low budget for this if the company has a risk rating. SMEs do not have risk ratings. They do not have. There's no companies who are giving SME risk ratings. Now, this means when banks are lending to the SMEs, they have to put down much more of the risk-weighted asset capital, this RWA capital, RWA budget, which means to compensate this, they will put the interest rate for the SMEs 15% higher just to compensate this RWA loss. So, and this is what people don't understand. Like this is everything, it's triggered by this regulation, and this regulation, so indirectly in the so-called free economy is the regulation, which is saying if you're a corporation, you have preferred conditions to borrow and lend as a corporation. As soon as you're a smaller company, you don't have them. So all this free money, yes, it's consolidating into the corporations. It's consolidating in the financial speculation. It's not getting into the real economy. Let's think, real economy is this 80% SMEs. Who are like
right.
So, and it's not getting there. Yes, the interest rates are low. Yes, it has this impact on the mortgages and so. But what is the impact on the real economy?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't exist.
Right. So because of the favorable conditions, if you will, for the larger corporations, et cetera, right? So the opportunities to earn yield on a bank account per se, in terms of savings for the average Joe is now extremely low, right? I mean, in Europe, there's a negative interest rate. In the States, it's zero, right? Everywhere is getting to that point. The traditional route of savings is no longer, applicable, in my opinion. So talk about how that kind of drove you, if you will, into smart credit and kind of what that kind of builds and how that provides an opportunity.
No, and just to comment on this one, yes, the people are in Europe, there are negative interest rates. In some states, in some, there will be soon negative interest rates. But let's think the real inflation in Europe is the same as in the US. It's 6-8%. It's the real inflation calculated by pre-Clinton formula. After Clinton formula, we're getting this 1%, 0.5%, and so. So de facto, people are losing pension funds. They're losing just every year 6, 7, 8% year by year. So, and 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗫𝗍𝒻, that's how your wealth is stolen from you. So, and now this is the monetary system. And we started to speak about the choice. I worked 10 years for Credit Suisse, private banking. So, and my hobby are the monetary systems and the credit systems. And the trigger was the Lehman crisis. Because after Lehman crisis, I started to think, what did happen there? What was the trigger? I started to study so much monetary systems, credit systems, me and my twin brother. And then through this, we got as well into Bitcoin. We looked like, okay, this is an alternative with all these characteristics. But we kept still working in a Credit Suisse, but luckily when we could leave the Credit Suisse, so we created a smart credit. We said, okay, that time we spoke about decentral autonomous banks. The idea is to use to create alternative financial systems which are not having this traditional well-pyramid effects when it doesn't matter how much you work in your life, you will not inherit in anything to your children because the system is not designed for you. The system is designed for someone else, not for you. So,
yeah, and you mentioned at the onset of this podcast the manipulative nature of central banks and how they're essentially just toying with that mathematical formula. Nothing happened to the inflation rate. It sounds like it's essentially stayed consistent for the last 50, 80 years. But, once people realized and kind of found out what the central banks were doing, and inflation was very high and so high that it was harmful, they didn't do anything about the underlying, inflation that was going on and inflating the monetary system. No, it's just the measure of inflation and changing that so that it looked a little bit more attractive.
Yes, they faked the inflation calculation so that 80% of people think, oh, the world is perfect. Inflation is just 1 or 2%. No, let's think on central banks. Central banks are setting the target. U.S. Federal Reserve, there has to be 2% inflation per year. Now, can someone explain me, please? I have 4 master degrees. Can please someone explain me, why should my wealth lose 2% every year?
Well, so the argument against, or I guess for inflation is You want some positive inflation so that people are incentivized to put their money to good use.
Exactly. But now let's go back. Let's go back into free banking area. Let's go back into cold era, the pre-Federal Reserve. That was an area of a deflation, because the humans by nature are optimizing. They are innovative. Every year through the innovation, you are creating a gain 2 or 3%. So that means every year, just if the economy is running with a normal innovation, there will be 2-3% wealth creation.
Like by innovation, the commodities are becoming cheaper?
No, just innovating new products, innovating new technologies, innovating new processes, the human creativity, innovation.
And you talked about the cost of goods, essentially, right? And and if we consider that the denominator, right, and you have the monetary M3 on top, to have some healthy inflation, it doesn't take inflating the numerator and having monetary system go up. It could just be deflating the denominator, right? Cost of goods can go down by way of innovation and scientific improvement. Cost of goods gets cheaper, and the monetary, M3 at the top is actually seeing some healthy inflation, even though the number isn't growing, the ratio is.
Okay, I will go one step further. I will go into the free banking area. That means pre-Federal Reserve area. The cost of goods went down, and everyone who had sound money, meaning gold, got richer every year. Every retired person, okay, there were no retired persons that time, but everyone who was saving got richer every year. So because the cost of goods, it went down. So, and that was the era when the middle class was created. The middle class was not created in after Fed era. Middle class in US was created in a pre-Fed deflationary era. Deflation was the system where the middle class was created.
And we got sidelined from the your entrance into smart credit, but kind of more pertaining to Andy's question. Now in the current scheme of things, interest rates are very low. We talked about how that's not really the case for SMEs, the small medium enterprises, but it still is at the root of lending and borrowing. This peer-to-peer nature of things that essentially is underlying every transaction. Can you talk a little bit more about smart credit, your entrance into smart credit, and kind of how you guys are improving lending and borrowing for the individual?
Okay, very simple. In one sentence, we are doing the same how the world worked for 4,700 years. That's all. Because if you look on the credit systems are 5,000 years old. The credit money, now we have centralized credit money. The decentralized credit money is 5,000 years old from Mesopotamia. The credit transactions for 4,000 something years, 4,700 years, till this centralization started via the banks, it was decentral. The Renaissance in Europe, it was decentral credit money system. It wasn't central credit money system. People are speaking of the middle age in Europe as the dark ages. I'm saying always, it was the era of Renaissance. It was the era of Hanse, era of Mediterranean trading network, era of Islamic trading network. It was era of massive economic development. Let's think so. It was decentral credit money, not government money, decentral credit money. It was sound money as a basis, gold, silver, always double, to have a choice in monetary competition, and the decentral credit money on top of this. What we are doing in our smart credit, we are saying, hey, these decentral systems, they existed so long, let's reactivate them. The pendula which went on the centralization of the monetary systems, centralization of the commercial banks, this pendula will go back. Because the question is, why did this centralization happen? It happened because the transaction costs, it got cheaper through the scale effect to create big companies who were dealing with the credit business. But now we have a blockchain. And thanks to the blockchain, okay, of course, we have to fix the gas costs in Ethereum. That's another topic, but they will be fixed. It will take some time, it will be fixed. But the transaction cost of doing like a transactions, thanks to the blockchain, it's going lower. And there is no need to have anymore these big centralized credit organizations giving credit. We are getting back to the same mode as the humanity existed for 4,700 years. Decentral credit systems, decentral monetary systems, decentral financial systems. Because this
Real quick, how does smart credit kind of fit in there? Are you looking to basically provide people an opportunity to lend and borrow right, with their funds. What is smart credit allowing folks to do who are in this situation?
Smart credit, very good. Okay, the smart credit, what we are, okay, first, we started to create a credit money, okay, like, you know, there's a base money, there's a credit money. To create a credit money, we developed the lending and borrowing. And then we realized people don't understand yet, what the credit money means. We said, no problem. And we focus purely on the borrowing and lending. And we are focusing on the fixed income funds. Now, if you're taking traditional finance, in traditional finance, okay, you have money market funds, but they're a very small piece. Most of the fixed income is a fixed income funds. Now, you look on the DeFi, money market fund everywhere, liquidity
Yeah, but there's
everywhere.
no fixed income. There's like barely any. There's like two.
There's no.
Yeah.
There's. Yeah.
Mile per hour, MPH
Yes,
is one.
there's-
88 mile an hour is definitely one. But other than that, it's tough to think of one.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had to challenge you. This 88 mile per hour is a trading strategy. It's not fixed income. Sorry, it's a trading strategy, which is a trading strategy is something different. Fixed income is a traditional economy. Low risk business. You're borrowing, you're lending, there's a collateral. MPH is doing a little trading algorithm. He's converting variable interest into the fixed interest with a little formula. So, well, it's going into category trading. So they offer a fixed rate, but they're not fixed interest rate. So the word came, fixed rate versus fixed interest rate. So we offer fixed interest rate and fixed term. So, and as a fixed income funds, so far we are the only ones. So, and we are saying like, hey, DeFi, look, you have now this absolute flexibility. I can put my liquidity into one protocol, in 10 minutes I take it away, put to the next. Okay, cool. I have absolute flexibility. Now, let's reduce the flexibility. Let's give to the people more stability, like a stable interest rate. So let's trade stability. Let's prefer stability to flexibility. And in a traditional economy, people prefer stability to the flexibility. It's better to know what you earn in 1 year instead of moving your funds between 10 different money market funds. So, and we say fixed income funds. And this is where we focus in a smart credit. That's what we want to add. Of course, and we want to add as well other things. We have a credit risk calculation. So we are calculating like, we're doing risk score, like, okay, it's optional. So we are doing these things. Then thanks to this fixed term approach, then thanks to this, then of course, it's just mathematics. We can offer a lower collateral to the borrowers because if you have unlimited borrowing time in a money market funds, you need a lot of collateral because you don't know how long this loan is running. Just by fixing the loan term, you know already, you make a little mathematics, you calculate your probabilities, and you, okay, we are CFAs, chartered financial analysts, just an easy calculation. So, to calculate these things, please. You know the loan term.
Another thing, Rob, is dude, when there's a massive farm, like, I mean, which is like, this has probably started to slow down, but when there's like a huge farm opportunity or there's a big need for one stablecoin, the
Exactly.
borrow rate just goes through the roof on Aave or Compound. So you'll see
Fluctuating rates.
sometimes the borrow rate's 30, 40, 60%, and then it'll be back down to 8%. But so like that's just one thing as a borrower of stablecoins you have to be aware of on, you know, not a fixed platform.
Right. And it sounds like the variable interest rates are much more sensitive to supply and demand dynamics. You know, just like you said, when demand for that stablecoin goes way up because people, you know, I guess want leverage in that case to buy more crypto, they're going to see a much more inflated borrowing APY. The other thing that I had on mind was there has to be a KYC process, right? If you're going to force people to, I mean, it's not even a force, you know, they choose to go into this agreement willingly, but if they're going to decide to pay back a loan in a certain amount of time, you know, there has to be some way to basically come after that person if they're not going to pay back their loan. Is that the case with smart credit?
Okay, let's go in the risk management framework in a smart credit score. And now we are over-collateralized, but we are less over-collateralized than the famous money market funds. Just the loan term is giving us the advantage. Now, if you're speaking of the 𝗵𝗵𝗴𝗵, it's let me make a little circle now into the peer-to-peer lending. If you're looking at all the peer-to-peer lending in a fiat world, this is unsecuritized lending. Lending club, all of them, it's unsecuritized lending. And so you're looking lending club interest rates, so depending on the risk score, A to F, so you have like 10% to 25%, like in US dollar, so the things. But the difference is there that in these systems, if you are not paying as a borrower, there's a way to give you in the court process. No. And that's a standard approach. And this approach has existed for 5,000 years. That's what you need for credit systems. You need a contract law, you need a court, and you need a people to make deals. You don't need actually a government. You need just a court to enforce the contracts. Now, if you want to get to the under-collateralized loans in a DeFi, in the same way as it's now in all to peer-to-peer fiat lending club and all the others. So the same issue needs to be fixed. We have to get this possibility legally enforceable contracts. No, but we have researched this topic a lot. But to get to these things, there is a challenge. Take a typical European court, go to them and tell them about the blockchain, and he used his private key to sign a transaction. I think they lost you in the second sentence already. So, but this is a challenge to get to the real, to get very massive peer-to-peer systems. We need as well a court framework, legal framework. This will allow very high local. This will allow the same as peer-to-peer systems doing the fiat.
Yeah.
Zero collateral.
Maybe you can expand a little bit more on the decentralized credit score. Maybe it's not completely decentralized, but how Smart Credit plans on offering that credit score to its creditors, and then kind of what the path is to get to a legally binding smart contract where it can be legally enforced, in reality and not just on the blockchain.
Okay, let's take credit score and the legally binding smart contracts. Okay, the credit score, all traditional credit systems, all traditional finance, it is based on credit scores. Now, if you're looking on the DeFi, there's no credit score. There's just this enough collateral, and that's the best credit risk management system. Now, the real credit risk management systems, they're like a net. You set a different net around us, but the first net is not catching, the second net will catch, the third net will catch, the fourth net will catch. So we have multiple elements in the same framework. Now, but what we are doing, credit risk scoring is then one of all elements of a risk management. Okay, we have collateralization, we have loss provision fund, okay, we have fixed loan terms, and a credit risk score. So in the credit risk score, we say this is optional. So we say, if someone wants to stay fully anonymous, please stay anonymous. You just have a little bit more collateral, you pay more interest. Choose. Or you can monetize your data. Now, how this data monetization happens, there are three elements that we are doing. I think we are the only ones who are doing this. We see that there are 2 or 3 other companies who are trying to do this, but actually we are the only one who is doing these three elements. The first is blockchain analytics. So we just look the inflows, outflows, assets. Like it's the same what the banks are doing. The banks are looking like the same on your banking account. How many assets are coming in? How many assets are going out? What is the gap, monthly gap? This gives you, we call it capability to borrow. So what is your capability to borrow? Now, the second one parameter is very important. It's a willingness to pay. So you can have money, but maybe you decide I cheat the system because there is no enforcement. Willingness to pay, how much you pay by the rules. And these elements, we are using some social graph analytics. We do this based on a social media, it's optional. User can open it up or he cannot open it up. It's his choice. It's his choice to monetize his data or not to monetize his data. And the third element is a little psychometric test. That's again his choice to do this or not to do it. If he does, he can improve his credit rating. And then if you plug these elements together, we get a credit score, and we give it as a relative credit score. So it's always relative to it's not like a FICO score, that's an absolute score. It's relative to the population, to the others, so that we can rank people relative to the users, and this gives a credit score. And then of course, the interest is that the people with good willingness to pay, this is important parameter, and a good capability to pay, that we have more of them. and the other people, very good, they can go to money market funds. They can use the other things. But yes, we think what will happen is that DeFi will get much more credit score, because it's not about DeFi. We say it's about decentral autonomous bank. We spoke about decentral autonomous bank, and then Andreessen and these companies, they came and started to brand this DeFi. We said, okay, guys, let's use the DeFi word. It's okay, it's shorter than decentral autonomous bank. So let's use it DeFi. But the idea is that these things, what we see now in decentral autonomous banks, or these things that existed 5,000 years ago, we are getting them into decentral finance, into DeFi. So, and one of them is a credit score. And like I said, there are now, I think, 4 companies. Okay, we are live with our product, but we don't offer this at the moment to anyone else. We just keep it as our competitive advantage. And there are 3 companies who try to kind of to create products as well on these things. So at least we know 3 of them.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, no, that's an awesome feature. I mean, it's going to be super important, as you're saying. It'll be interesting to see if we can like delegate credit scores and reputational aspects to certain Ethereum wallets, basically. You know, not having to like do it by name or by email or but just by this wallet. Like, hey, you know, if this wallet comes and interacts with your protocol, here's their reputational score, here's their credit. That'd be really interesting. And that kind of takes me to the next point that Robbie asked, which is, you know, how do we take that relationship of reputation and credit on chain, you know, and kind of make it into like a legally binding agreement, right?
What you say now about the credit score? We see that 2 companies are trying to calculate as well a credit score only based on the blockchain analytics. We do this blockchain analytics, but we say it's not enough. Because credit score is not only your history of payments, credit score is as well your behavioral. How do you act? How much do you respect the agreements? What is your willingness to play by the rules? Like, like this profile. So we have both profiles. So it's your history, transactions, and as well your such a metric classification. So, okay, now legally enforceable contracts. How to get there? Okay. Unfortunately, it's bound to the legislation. So we did a lot of research on this. Initially on the smart credit, we wanted to get to the legally enforceable contracts, but the issue is so-called digital signatures. And if you look on Europe, if you look in America, the digital signatures, meaning private key signatures, are not legal documents. So this will be okay in Estonia, in some countries in Europe, they are, but this is a minority. Now, and it will be a very simple change in the law procedures to say like the private keys signed documents are as well legally binding documents. So, because at the moment you can go to the court, you can say, look, this gentleman controls this private key, is proved by this transaction that he transferred the collateral, that means he controls the private key, and he signed this loan contract. But, well, the issue is you have to do this case by case, you have to explain it like a 2-week court process. It costs money. Of course, you will win, but you will pay $10,000 to get a $1,000 loan back.
And just a quick interruption. How is a private key signature different from, you know, I'm sure you've used like DocuSign, right, where you're signing something and it's online. It's not like you're physically writing something, you know, but it is your signature. It's your token representing your identity.
Exactly. Now,
you know, is there a pair of
it's the law is different.
Okay, so I'll let you take it away. You see where I'm going. Is there a
The law is
so different. Is there a blockchain analytics functionality that can pair that just similar to like a DocuSign electronic signature?
No, the DocuSign electronic signature is in the law. It's accepted by the law. Electronic signatures are accepted by the law. As well in Amazon, if you are signing a transaction, not a signing transaction, committing transaction, this is accepted by the law. No, this is in the law. But what is missing in the law, whether like a wet signature is there, electronic like a DocuSign signature is there, but private key signature. Please, dear regulator, instead of speaking that small medium enterprises don't have any money in Europe, just make a little change in the law. Say private key signature is legal contract, And after this, you can get so much new SME financing, so much new consumer financing. It will be a financial renaissance, because this allows you to go on this under-collateralized lending. Like you don't need any big magic of delegation of risk or so. You're saying it's a legal document. It's a court-accepted contract in the same way as a wet signature. One little change in the laws. But I bet this will not happen so fast. Because
it's not so easy. I mean, Ethereum and DeFi, it goes over borders. So to have like regulation to, it's just, we're going to be in this world where there's different regulatory ideas and bodies in terms of nation states for a long time, because obviously each nation state is going to have to figure out how they're going to regulate the technology, because the technology, like we said, it defies borders. There's no end. Like you can't cut the technology off from your country. So yeah, what I'm saying is, these regulations, they're going to start in favorable nations, as you said, Estonia, perhaps even Switzerland, right? It's more that the free world kind of ideological nations, and then they'll kind of seep into the more, I'd say, westernized, if you will, countries and states, et cetera, and those, even in Asia as well. Yeah, we are about out of time here. So what should we wrap up here, Martin? Is there anything that we haven't wrapped up on and hit on as far as smart credit goes? Anything that you'd like the listeners to know?
Okay, in smart credit, we are now working. We are in internal testing of our February. We target February release. We call it release 1.1. This will then add the full fixed income functionality. Then after that is, because what we have now in the production, there's a fixed term loans or fixed interest loans, there's loan tokenization, there's a credit score, everything is there. So we add now on top of this fixed income fund, so that we are the first one who is doing real fixed income funds, not fixed interest rate transformations. So, and then of course, then the 4 months later, then is then the release 1.2, and we will keep this 4-month cycle so that we continuously will bring this new functionality. The backlog is very long. Everything that existed 5,000 years ago, we will do it decentrally. So, yes, we just need time, and we need users.
Yeah, users is huge. I remember, I think Elon Musk might have tweeted this. He was like, the value of anyone's technology can just be seen by the amount of users. I mean, that's huge. And I mean, we've seen that blow up this year in DeFi and Ethereum. And, we hope that smart credit can continue to grow. I mean, it seems like they've got the right guy at the reins.
We will do it anyhow. This is our philosophy, because we say people have to think. This decentralized finance is not now the thing of last 2-3 years. That's how the humanity existed before the banks were created. And this was a very effective system, very transparent system. And now we have blockchain. Let's get back there. Let's get back to the roots. We are not inventing something new. We're just copy-pasting what existed.
Yeah, and a quote I heard a while ago, but I've tried to incorporate it into my philosophy a little bit more, is you always hear about you want to learn from your mistakes, and I think that's a very important sentiment, but it's just as important to learn from the successes over the years. You want to repeat what's good in history, but you don't want to repeat what's bad. So it sounds like you guys are you have that right in the mind, and you're looking at what has been right in monetary policy going back the last 5,000 years and trying to incorporate it with the new innovative technology at our fingertips now.
That's it.
That's it right there.
Awesome.
That's so true. I mean, that's exactly what smart credit's working on. That's what DeFi is trying to do. And I mean, ultimately, it becomes a whole new world, and it'll be exciting to see over the next 5, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, hundreds of years. And hey, Martin, we appreciate you making time for this, us as well. We're glad that we can make this happen. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you, guys. Very nice to speak here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this was super. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
All right.
Nice.
Thanks for listening to the DeFi by Design podcast. Until next time, DeFi Slate Team.